Nietzsche versus Freud. The eye and its drives. Who really rules you? Introduction. The grand deception of the eye. What if I told you that the eye, that thing you call yourself, is nothing more than a fiction? That you, the conscious thinker, the self-willed actor, the decision-maker of your fate, are a mere shadow, a facade behind which deeper forces move? Nietzsche saw the self not as a sovereign captain steering the ship, but as a battlefield, where drives, instincts, and impulses wage war for dominance. The I, the rational, autonomous agent, was nothing but a convenient illusion. Freud, too, stripped away the dignity of self-determination, revealing the mind as a conflict between the ego, the id, and the superego. But here lies the battle. Were Nietzsche and Freud heading toward the same truth? Or did they pass each other like ships in the night, ultimately at war in their vision of the human psyche? Let's dive into the deepest depths of your psychology, where your drives lurk in the shadows, where your actions are decided before you even think, where your eye dissolves into a great Nietzschean abyss. Section 1. The Great Deception. You do not think, it thinks through you. Freud gave us the ego, the superego, and the id, a tripartite struggle where reason, morality, and raw desire claw at each other for control. But Nietzsche, he laughed at such a rigid structure. Instead, he shattered the mind into a multiplicity of drives, each one a tyrant in its own right, each one vying for supremacy. A thought comes when it wants, not when I want, Nietzsche declared. The self does not command, it obeys. Imagine this: you feel hunger, but is it truly you who wants to eat, or is hunger itself a force that has taken possession of your body, whispering into your consciousness, seducing you into believing it is your decision? Nietzsche pushes further. Not only do your desires own you, but they also wear the mask of rational decisions. Freud believed these hidden forces could be categorized, understood, even managed. Nietzsche, he saw them as chaotic, pluralistic, endlessly shifting, and ultimately indifferent to human will. You are not a commander, you are a puppet. But to whom? Section 2. The Psychology of Drives. Nietzsche versus Freud. Both Nietzsche and Freud agreed, human action is not a product of reason, but of deeper irrational forces. But where Freud placed these forces into a rigid system, Nietzsche allowed them total anarchy. Freud's drives, the prison of pleasure and civilization. Freud envisioned the psyche as a machine of suppressed instincts, with civilization acting as the warden. The pleasure principle, the relentless drive toward satisfaction, is shackled by guilt, morality, and repression. Freud, always the surgeon, dissected the mind, cataloguing its instincts. He sought to diagnose, to heal, to make functional the sick, fragmented self. Nietzsche's drives, the wild beast that must be unleashed. Nietzsche, however, was not interested in healing. He was interested in power, the force that compels all life. Will to power. Not merely sexual repression, not merely neurotic defense mechanisms, but the fundamental force of existence itself. Where Freud saw pathology, Nietzsche saw the raw materials of greatness. The truly strong individual does not repress his instincts. He transmutes them, he redirects them, he sublimates them into creation, conquest, and art. And so the question arises: is the goal to free yourself from your drives or to master them? Section 3. The I is a lie, and yet it must exist. Here, Nietzsche and Freud diverge in the most radical way. Freud still clung to the I, even if diminished. The ego, though embattled, still exists as a negotiator, a rationalizing force balancing the primal urges of the ID and the moral policing of the superego. Nietzsche, he annihilated the I completely. To Nietzsche, the I is nothing more than the story we tell ourselves after the battle is already fought. The real war, it happens at the level of drives. The I is just the secretary that writes down the history after the fact. But here's the paradox. Even as Nietzsche obliterated the I in theory, he resurrected it in practice. In his concept of becoming, of self-overcoming, Nietzsche demanded that we take ownership over our inner chaos. not by controlling it in the Freudian sense, but by forging it into something new. The weak individual allows himself to be torn apart by his instincts. The strong individual, the overman, does not conquer his drives. He arranges them into a hierarchy, shaping them into a singular will. And so the question remains, can you forge yourself into a true I? Or will you remain a battlefield where every passing impulse dictates your fate? Conclusion: who wins, Freud or Nietzsche? So where does this leave us? Freud wanted to make peace with the drives, to integrate them, to control them through analysis. Nietzsche wanted to go to war with them, to let them fight, to use their chaos as fuel for greatness. Freud sought healing. Nietzsche sought transformation. Which one do you seek? The battle of Freud versus Nietzsche is not just a battle of ideas, it is a battle within yourself. Do you long for peace, balance, and reason? Or do you hunger for power, chaos, and creation? Do you want a comfortable truth, or a dangerous one? Perhaps, as Nietzsche warned, truth is not something to be found, it is something to be created. The question is, will you create it? Final words, call to action. If you've made it this far, you have already begun your own battle. But philosophy is not meant to be passively consumed, it is meant to be lived. Do you agree with Freud that we must understand our hidden drives and integrate them into a well-balanced self? Or do you side with Nietzsche, that the self is an illusion, and only those who forge themselves from their inner chaos can rise above the herd? Tell me in the comments, who wins, Nietzsche or Freud? And if this made you rethink everything you knew about yourself, subscribe, because we're just getting started.